Hi, and welcome to Rule of Carnage Kickstarter Weekly Roundup. As you might know if you've been following the channel, generally Rule of Carnage consists of myself, Glenn Ford, and Mike Hutchinson chatting about designing miniatures games. Well, you also might know that I have a little bit of experience with Kickstarter, having successfully run a few campaigns, and we thought it might be a good idea if I start putting out a little weekly video where I go through the best of what Kickstarter has to offer for tabletop miniatures gamers. And that's exactly what I'm going to do, starting from this week onwards. So without too much further ado, the first campaign that I think you should take a look at is Golden Faith from Zenit Miniatures. Now, this is a campaign for a series of miniatures in a sort of samurai Bushido style. They could totally fit in for playing a range of games in that setting, Test of Honor, Bushido. But one of the main reasons you should totally stop by the campaign is that there's a completely free to download PDF of the full rules for the game. It seems to be a rank and flank miniatures game set in a semi-mythic, mystical version of the Warring States period of Japan. The miniatures themselves look great. The samurais, I think some of them particularly would grace any Japanese Bushido samurai set game. They come in at a reasonable price, and they're available as full miniatures, not simply an STL. And there's a range of pledges available from just a few miniatures to what appears to be a full army set. So you should totally check that one out, if only to pick up a free rule set. So why not stop by and have a quick look? So second of all in the roundup, and we're starting with some more general campaigns, I've got a range of things to look at, is Grand Fleet Admiral by Leggy. Now, this is mainly an STL campaign. So for those not aware, STL campaigns are STL files that you can then 3D print off either at home or through a company that 3D prints. But Grand Fleet Admiral also has a level for a deep space fleet battle game that they've designed. So the PDF rulebook to that comes on every pledge level for free, as long as you sign up for some of the STL files. The miniatures themselves, the spaceship miniatures, look pretty good. I think there's a real range of designs in there for any deep space fleet battle game you might be playing. I don't know, A Billion Suns, anything of that nature. So I think you should totally take a little look in there. It's a solid looking campaign. It's funded very quickly. The STLs are really nice, and you know, there's a whole free game available if you back on any level. So check that one out. So last of all, in the more general campaigns, is Post-Apocalyptic Miniatures coming from Orzol Studios. Now, this is more possibly for some skirmish gaming rather than something on a large scale, but like the last two campaigns were. Again, it is primarily an STL file campaign, although the miniatures are available to order in resin or metal at a fairly reasonable price. Also, though, again, this is an interesting campaign to stop by on because it has a free to download rulebook for their post-apocalyptic survival skirmish game. Now, it's just a beta rule set at the moment. I've had a look through it, and yeah, it could do with a little bit of general proofreading and checking over, but it looks like it's probably a runnable rule set. And you know, this is a great opportunity. If you're watching this channel, you might be interested in tabletop miniatures design. This is a company who are obviously running a rule set on a beta level. They've got a fully funded Kickstarter. This could be an opportunity for somebody out there to offer a little bit of feedback, get to work in a developer position. I would definitely, if I was setting out at the moment and trying to get moving in the miniatures design space, take a look at this campaign, download the beta test rulebook, run it through, maybe play test it at home, and come back with some solid feedback. These guys might well, you know, be interested, it could totally go somewhere. So the next campaign is a miniatures accessories campaign. It's just one of these I think are probably worth looking at the moment, currently on Kickstarter, and that's the Steampunk and Cavern 3D print terrain and wall display for minis by Real Game FX. It's a bit of a mouthful for a campaign title. Basically, what it seems to be is a set of 3D printable terrain pieces designed so that you can screw them straight to the wall and display your miniatures in funky dioramas rather than just having them in a box somewhere or on, you know, relatively plain shelving. I don't think you'd necessarily want to go for this for every single model in a decent sized collection, but a few of them have some pretty cool effects going on, and for a handful of, you know, higher end minis, maybe some stuff you're really proud of, I think it could really punch up a game space or your painting area, or even a more public part of the house. So take a look if you're looking to display your miniatures in a bit more of a stylish, punched up fashion at that campaign. So next up is a straight up miniatures campaign, Colony 87 Wave 4 from Crooked Dice game design studio. Now, Crooked Dice, if you at all are interested in the independent skirmish miniatures gaming arena, they do a whole range of interesting, quirky miniatures, bits that are a bit harder to track down if you're playing a game that has something that's not super mainstream. And Colony 87 is part of a series of campaigns, as I say, it's Wave 4, where they're miniatures for a sci-fi space station, but they're not all the most traditional combat-y fighting skirmish game designs. There's like civilians, service droids, the bits and pieces that will populate a space station. So it might be more possibly on the role-playing end of things, but if you're looking to run something a little bit out of the ordinary, or something a bit more narrative set in a sci-fi world, you should totally take a look. The miniatures are really cool, and Crooked Dice are a great publisher, and I totally think even if you're not that interested in this campaign, you'll probably find something somewhere on their website that will interest you and will fill out a little gap or a niche within your collection. Okay, so now we're on to the STL campaigns. So anybody who's familiar with Kickstarter tabletop campaigns will know that there's always a solid crop of STL file campaigns. These campaigns that just supply a set of 3D STL files for printing off miniatures either at home or through a 3D printers company. They have a wide range. I'm trying to stick to campaigns that are more for larger tabletop miniatures gamers, and moving away from campaigns that are more for RPGs, one-off miniatures models like that. And that's not because there aren't great campaigns in that area out there, it's just that there's always quite a few of these campaigns, and this video will probably be twice the length if I went over all of them. So first up, the Astra Nebula by Evan Carruthers. Now, this campaign is, if you are following this channel and you are interested in A Billion Suns, I would strongly advise you to take a little look at this campaign. Not only is there a wide range of deep space fleet battle style miniatures available in the campaign, there are a few that would, you know, really make your life a little bit easier for playing A Billion Suns. There's some space station miniatures, some civilian ships. There are space krakens in the campaign. So definitely take a little look at it. It's a good price for a big old range of miniatures that are very stylish, very solid. And obviously, you know, not just for A Billion Suns, you could totally use these for Drop Fleet, any of the Games Workshop Deep Space Fleet battle games, any Deep Space Fleet battle game, frankly, that you're interested in. There's a wide range there available in these STL files. They could cover a whole series of campaigns and situations. So give that campaign a little look over if you're in any way interested in big old fleet space battles. So another campaign I'd like to give a little shout out to is Tamed and Wild Ones, Prehistoric Beasts and Terrain from Koval Ludmila. Now, when this video comes out, this campaign is going to probably be into its last 48 hours. So if you are interested, you'll have to watch this video right when it's released and get straight in there. Hopefully they'll have some sort of ongoing availability. I noticed that they do have levels for retailers. This is a really unusual set of STL files. They are, as the title suggests, Prehistoric Beasts, sort of saber-toothed tigers, dodos, things of that nature. But what's kind of cool is that several of the models come with two versions, the natural beast and then an armored tamed version for where your caveman or whoever has armored up this beast to be some sort of combat ally, or maybe just for some sort of raging beasts skirmish game that you're playing yourself. Now, I know that's a pretty niche set of ideas. It's not something that's necessarily going to turn up on every tabletop all the time. On the other hand, it's something you're not going to see very often. It's not a huge investment. And you never know when something like that is going to turn up and you're going to think, brilliant, I've got exactly the right thing for it. So take a look at it. It's a little bit interesting, a little bit out there, but it's well worth just stopping in and, you know, letting your eye be caught by some of these more interesting, unusual designs. So yeah, take a look at that one. It's pretty cool, pretty interesting. And I think there's probably a few things in there that might click some ideas in most people's heads. So next up is the first of two campaigns for a set of STL printable bases for miniatures. So this one is Dojo Floor Bases by Michael Kumba. Now, exactly as the title suggests, it's a set of round STL texture terrain tiles representing dojo floor bases for round base minis. So textured mats similar to you might find in a training dojo. These would do very nicely for Malifaux 10 Thunders miniatures, work very nicely in Test of Honor, Fistful of Kung Fu, any game with that sort of Eastern flavor. Personally, I wish I'd seen these a little while ago. I've got a set of Malifaux miniatures based on these style mats that were created by the cutting up of teeny tiny tubes and gluing them down. So if that sounds like something that would fit in nicely with a future project, it's literally £2 for the entire set of STLs. Very little to lose by just going in on this one. And even if you're not using them right now, tucking that STL file away until something comes up that they would work nicely for. So second of all, for campaigns for STL bases is Asgard Rising by Rising Miniatures. Now, this is a campaign for no less than 150 pre-supported STL files for printing. There's a insane range of bases in this campaign. There's everything from funguses to enormous fish. It'd fit in for a huge range of skirmish games, fancy miniatures games. Nicely for campaigns of this sort, there are some love given to square bases for those of us still clinging tenaciously onto the square base format. Take a look at it. I can pretty much guarantee if you've got any interest in doing something a bit exotic and a bit interesting with your bases, one of these 150 plus bases will catch your eye. They've got a huge range of some really cool creative stuff there. It's a pretty reasonable price for that many files. And again, it's a set of files you can just tuck away on the computer. And when you suddenly realize they're perfect for your current project, you can just pull them out, pop off a base and really punch one of those miniatures up. So first of all, in a few STL terrain campaigns is Fantasy House 2 by Caledonia Miniatures. This is a pay what you want campaign. There's a couple up this week. I'll come on to another one in a second. It's a really nice looking, obviously fantasy, vague medieval era little cottagey house. Worked very nicely in, I would think, pretty much any fantasy setting, and worked very well on a range of historical settings. Frankly, anything from the medieval era onwards, you could come across this sort of building in most places in Europe. As I say, it's a pay what you want campaign, so you can pick it up for whatever you consider to be a very reasonable price. And again, it's something you can slot away and bring out when that's the sort of thing you're looking for. So our second pay what you want campaign available at the moment for 3D printable terrain is for a 3D printable bunker for sci-fi gaming. And it lists on the campaign for tabletop RPGs. This would work absolutely fine in 40k or any of the whole range of sci-fi post-apocalyptic gaming. It's got a few bits and pieces in there, not just the bunker, but a sort of missile turret. And again, obviously, pay what you want. It's going to be available at a reasonable price. And again, it's the sort of file you could slot away, and it's going to be becoming useful again and again for a whole range of games. So take a little look at that one. So the last of our, well, mainly terrain campaign this week is Farm Architecture by Oksana Klingel. Now, if you take a look at this one, it's a little bit unusual. It's a little bit weird. It's a range of farm terrain, barns, tractors, that could be from a range of ages. It has a slight cartoony edge to some of the terrain. It's also got a bunch of farm animals in the campaign there. Now, yeah, this is a little bit odd, partly just because of that little cartoony tweak to some of the terrain. But I really think if you take a little look at this, you might get a few interesting ideas. There's a few things you could do, I think, with some of those minis. They're not so cartoony that they would look insane in a sort of a modern campaign set around a sort of semi-rural setting, but they could really give a little extra feel to whatever you're putting out there. Could really define a tabletop. Just has a little bit of extra style, you know, a little bit of extra spin to it. Take a little look at it. It's not going to be for everybody, but you know, if it catches your eye, I think this is a one campaign where that extra sort of twist of style might really be at some people's street. So first of this week's army pledges for STL miniatures is Champions of Virtue by Neil Billings. Now, top of the page for this one, it's a handful of sort of warriors. It's maybe a bit more on the RPG, very small skirmish end of things. Scroll down the campaign, there's a pledge level for a range of decent looking undead minis at a very reasonable price, enough to put together a small to medium sized undead force, or just add a little bit of extra pizzazz to an existing undead army, pop in a few models that will just pop it out and make people go, oh, not quite sure where that one's from, you know, catch people's eye. It's a nice little campaign, and as I say, there's a decent handful of undead miniatures if you just pan down a little further. But the Champions of Virtue the campaigns are for, they're nice minis. They'd make, you know, nice little champions in a larger army, or would go very well to make a small skirmish force in a smaller level game. So the next STL file army campaign is Elven Lords, the Treekin by Last Sword Miniatures. Now, if you take one look at this campaign, it's going to shout Wood Elves fantasy battle wood elves particularly. I mean, there's obviously a range of fantasy worlds in which wood elf style creatures are going to fit very nicely, but there's some war dancers, there's some dryads. It's pretty solidly, doing a Games Workshop style wood elves army, but they are pretty stunning miniatures, really nice designs, very detailed, a lot of style in the designs there. There's enough miniatures to make probably a small elite force, or there's more than enough to give an extra bit of punch, an extra bit of pizzazz to an existing army collection. Take a look. If you just like looking at really sort of nice minis, take a look anyway. There's some really stunning designs in there. Yeah, check that one out. If you're anyway looking for some wood elf minis or to punch up a wood elf force, that one's well worth checking out. So last of all for this week, there's a campaign, Gorebots by RTV Minis. Now, this is a bit of an unusual campaign. It's STL files for a series of bits of robot miniatures that you can then assemble within a 3D manipulation program and then print out. So these are killer sci-fi robots. They do very nicely for Necrons or any similar such robo sci-fi army. And it's just an interesting idea to be able to put together a set of modular STL files. Take a look at that one. It does have a level for having the models pre-printed. It also comes with the models pre-printed and pre-painted. I'm not sure that's going to be to everybody's taste. I'm not sure if they will supply the models unpainted. It might depend on how they're doing the painting. The printed price looks on the high side, but the STL files look at a reasonable price. And yeah, it's just an interesting concept, interesting idea. If you're looking for a whole bunch of robo miniatures that you can then pose to your own tastes rather than taking the STL files as is and sort of being stuck with them, Gorebots could be the one to look at. So thanks for watching. That's been Kickstarter Roundup for this week. We'll come back to you next Wednesday with a new crop of Kickstarters that can liven up and fill out your tabletop miniatures gaming. For now, thanks and goodbye.